just simply stop and say, what do you mean by evolution? And if they say, well, things change. Oh, yeah, I agree. I believe that. Oh, you believe in evolution? Well, I believe things change. I believe the change is limited to whatever information is already in the gene code. That doesn't prove a turtle and a banana are related, that's for sure. It might be that all the 500 varieties of turtles came from maybe only 10 turtles in the Garden of Eden. I don't know how many kinds God made. And today there's probably a lot of new varieties, but still, there's still a turtle. So be very careful. You can win the argument every time, and you got to watch for it, because they will constantly try to blur the border between micro and macro. And they're missing the entire point of the other phases of evolution. Those are the 6 meanings. And if you keep hammering on that, eventually they'll either get mad and go away, or they will get converted. Because that to me is the whole crux of the argument. The teachers are taught in the teacher's manuals, be sure to stress that the earth is billions of years old. Make sure the kids believe this. If I told you a dog came from a rock because somebody gave it a pill, that's stupid, right? But in the science textbook, they teach the dog came from the rock over billions of years. So if it happens slowly, maybe that happened. It's still a fairy tale, okay? It doesn't happen. Time's not going to change it. You say the man flew through the air, like on some kind of fairy tale. Well, it's obviously a fairy tale if the guy goes flying through the air. What if he goes slowly walking through the air? Is that less of a fairy tale? The whole thing that happens with evolution is they try to hide behind billions of years ago, as if that'll make a difference. And it doesn't make any difference. Okay, the first law of thermodynamics. The word thermo, where we get our word thermometer, means heat. We will ask you to define thermodynamics. Dynamics is where we get our word for dynamite, which means power. So thermodynamics is heat power. One of the universal laws, the first universal law here, thermodynamics, tells us matter cannot be created or destroyed. If you change something from one state to another, you burn the tree, you change it into ash and energy. In the process, something is lost that can never be regained. When you burn the gasoline in your car engine, if it's really tuned up well, is probably about 30% efficient. Most of the exploding gasoline, the energy in there is wasted as heat. That's why you have to have a radiator to keep the engine cooled down. If you could get an engine 100% efficient, it'd get 500 miles to the gallon. But so much is wasted as heat. Your body right now, we're in a room that's about 70 degrees and your body's 98 degrees. All that extra heat is heating the room, which eventually will go out and heat the yard, which eventually heats up the world and dissipates. And it's lost, cannot be regained. So the first law of thermodynamics says matter cannot be created or destroyed, which raises the obvious question, what started it all? Had to start someplace. Let's take about a 2-minute break. Stand up, turn around, stretch. So the word thermodynamics simply means heat power. There are 3 different laws of thermodynamics. We'll get into the first and second one. The third one, I don't remember what it was. Nobody ever uses it anyway. But it's one of those things you learn in physics class and then you forget. But if matter cannot be created or destroyed, and sometimes this is phrased a little different, but this is the same concept. Basically, it says it can only be changed from one form to another. You can change matter to energy. I can burn a piece of wood and turn it into heat. It's very difficult to change the energy back to matter, though it can be done. But there's such a loss. Every time there's a loss of irretrievable energy that eventually everything will experience what is called a heat death. The universe will all cool down. It'll be uniformly cold everywhere. Now, since matter cannot be created or destroyed, this leaves us 2 choices to explain how the world got here. We are here. So there are only 2 choices of how we got here. Number 1, somebody made this world. And this is where you get into, okay, who made it? Well, there's all sorts of options there. Is it Allah or Jehovah or God or Buddha or whatever, That's where you get into all the different religions of which one is right. But the fact is, it basically breaks down into two categories. Somebody made it, or it made itself. Now, if you want to say it made itself, well, then you're in the category of there is no God, the atheistic category. If you're a theist, a person who believes there is a God, then you would have to then start to figure out, okay, which God? And what's he like, and why did he do it? You know, those kind of questions. There are some people who would create a third category. They would say, oh, we're not really here at all. We just think we're here. I think you can forget about those folks, okay? We are here. So either somebody made it like the Bible says, God created the heaven and the earth, or it made itself like the humanists say. The Humanist Manifesto, 1933, first plank was, humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. Now, the Humanist Manifesto was rewritten and revised in 1973. That's the Humanist Manifesto 2. That might be a good question. Humanist Manifesto, 1933. One of the signers of the Humanist Manifesto was a guy named John Dewey. John Dewey went to, I believe, Vermont and became the leader of the Teachers College. Under his direction, they produced many humanist leaders who went off and became leaders of major colleges and universities around the world, which then turned out thousands and thousands of humanist-believing teachers, which then went out and took over the school system. Education was infiltrated. To a large part of the blame can go on John Dewey, who was one of the signers of Humanist Manifesto, 1933. So we'll get into education more, but John Dewey and his philosophy of humanism, see, really boils down to this. If there is no God, then we better get together and figure out how to run this world, because it's up to us. Right? So we end up with man's wisdom. Twice in the Bible, it says, every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Well, if there is no God, then how do you decide right from wrong? I often ask people, you know, if they believe in evolution, I say, well, how do you tell right from wrong? Think about it. What is sin, if evolution is true? There's no way to tell, is there? You don't have a standard, nothing to measure it against. But the humanists believe the universe is self-existing and not created. Well, this, of course, is rather difficult to believe, and the devil knew it would be hard to believe. So he had to think up some way to sound scientific that the world could make itself. And over the years, many theories have been proposed to explain how the world can make itself. There's been the nebular hypothesis, was real popular for a long time. The current one today is called the Big Bang Theory. How many have heard of the Big Bang Theory? That is the current way to explain how the universe got here without a creator, which, of course, really doesn't explain a thing, because they're just giving to some mythical name, Big Bang, they're giving it the same characters that God has. Big Bang created time, space, and matter. The Bible says God created time, space, and matter. So they're trying to accomplish the same thing, explain why we're here, and what, you know, who are we, why are we here, where are we going when we die, and those kind of things, without God. So the Big Bang would be their idea of the beginning. Here's a typical textbook used in Escambia County right here in Pensacola, Florida. It was, I don't know if it still is, in fact, it's a 92 edition. So how was the universe born, and how will it end? Now look at that first question. Isn't that going back to the four basic questions of life? Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going when it ends? When it's all over, when we die? Every religion tries to answer that. So what they're doing here is introducing a religious concept in the schools to explain something that every human wants to know, some of the basic questions of life. Most astronomers believe. Now look at that sentence. What does that say to the average freshman kid in high school? Well, most astronomers believe this, therefore it must be true. You see how it becomes truth by majority opinion. Dangerous thing to do, okay? In the first place, how do you prove most astronomers believe that? They don't offer any evidence for how they prove that. They just make the statement. I could say, everybody knows Fords are better than Chevys. Which is, first place, probably not true, but